My Nan was 81 and still sharp, and I want to be clear about that before anything else. People hear elderly woman living alone, and they start building a particular narrative in their heads: confusion, memory loss, imagining things. My Nan was none of that. She'd been a secondary school maths teacher for 34 years in Sheffield, had the kind of mind that noticed inconsistencies the way other people notice weather, and was more skeptical about the world than most people half her age. She did the newspaper crossword every morning and complained when it was too easy, which was often. She was not someone who imagined things. I'm her granddaughter. I'm 31. I live in Leeds, which is about an hour from her house in the Crooks area of Sheffield, where she'd lived since the 1970s. My mom passed away 4 years ago, and since then I'd become the main family contact for Nan, which wasn't a burden so much as a reconfiguration of our relationship. We'd always been close. After Mum, it became something more deliberate. The smart home system was my idea, which I've thought about a great deal since. Nan had a fall in the garden in the spring of 2 years ago, nothing serious, a twisted ankle, but it frightened me in the specific way that minor incidents frighten you when the person involved is 81 and lives alone. I started researching ways to make her house safer and more connected without making her feel managed, which was the line I was aware I was walking. Nan had opinions about her independence that were non-negotiable and correct. What I settled on was fairly modest by smart home standards. A video doorbell so she didn't have to go to the door for every knock and could see who was there from her phone. Smart lighting in the hallway and bathroom that could come on automatically at night so she wasn't navigating dark rooms. A simple voice assistant in the kitchen for timers and reminders because she cooked elaborate things from memory and sometimes lost track of multiple timers simultaneously. And a small sensor kit under the brand name of a company that marketed specifically to families with elderly relatives, designed to learn daily patterns and flag anomalies, not in a surveillance way, but in a gentle is everything all right way. Nan accepted all of it with the air of someone granting a reasonable concession. She said the voice assistant was useful and she appreciated the lighting. She regarded the pattern sensor with mild suspicion, but acknowledged the logic. I set everything up over a weekend visit in August, tested it thoroughly, walked her through what each thing did and didn't do, and left with the comfortable feeling of having actually solved a problem rather than just worried about one. For 4 months, it worked exactly as intended. The first call I got from Nan about the system was in December, a Tuesday evening, around 8 o'clock. She said, "Your little speaker has started doing something I don't understand and I want you to explain it." I asked what it was doing. She said that for the past 3 nights, between 2 and 3 in the morning, the voice assistant in the kitchen had activated on its own. Not loudly, she said, not enough to wake her, but she'd been sleeping lightly because of some joint pain and had noticed the glow of its indicator light through the hallway from her bedroom. She'd got up and checked, and it was active, doing nothing visible, and had deactivated within a minute. I told her what I'd told myself immediately, which was that these devices sometimes activate on sounds that resemble their wake word, that nighttime had its own ambient noise, neighboring properties, pipes, whatever, and that it was almost certainly that. She said, "I considered that, but it's been 3 nights at the same time." Nan had been a maths teacher. She knew what a pattern was. I said I'd look at the device log and ring her back. I pulled it up on my phone from Leeds. 3 activations, 0214, 217, 221 on consecutive nights. No logged wake word, no output generated, just activation and then deactivation. I called her back and told her it was probably a firmware issue, that I'd update the device remotely, and that if it continued, I'd come down and look at it in person. She accepted this with the tone of someone who accepts an explanation without being fully satisfied by it. I pushed the firmware update that night. She called me again on Friday, 4 nights after our first conversation, so 1 quiet night after the update, and then it resumed. This time, she'd actually gone to the kitchen and stood beside the device while it was active. She said it wasn't making any sound. It was simply on, its indicator light running, like doing nothing she could identify. She said, I stood next to it for about 40 seconds and then it turned itself off. And the doorbell camera in the hall, the little light on that was on too. The video doorbell had a feature where it activated on motion inside the hallway. It wasn't supposed to run at 2 a.m. without motion being detected. I pulled the doorbell log when I got off the phone. It had activated at 2:19 on the same night as the most recent voice assistant event. The activation type was logged as motion detected. The doorbell had a camera. Motion activation saved a clip. I opened the clip. 12 seconds of hallway footage, my Nan's narrow Sheffield hallway with the coat hooks and the small table with the telephone on it. 12 seconds of empty hallway at 2:19 in the morning. The motion sensor had triggered on an empty hallway. I drove to Sheffield the next morning. I checked every device, every connection, every setting. I found nothing wrong and could not explain either the pattern of activations or the motion event. Before I left, I checked the doorbell's sensitivity settings. It was set to the calibration I'd given it in August, standard, appropriate for the hallway size. There was a second sensitivity profile saved in the device settings, not one I'd created. Configured to detect motion from a position roughly consistent with someone standing outside the hallway window, which faced the side passage between Nan's house and next door. The side passage has a gate. I asked Nan when she'd last used it. She said she hadn't been out there since October. But she'd noticed, she said almost as an afterthought, that the gate had been opened twice in recent weeks when she was certain she'd left it closed. The smart home stuff was my husband's idea, and I went on with it the way I go along with most of his technology phases, which is to say, I participated minimally, learned what I needed to operate it, and mostly stayed out of his way while he set it up. Marcus is an early adopter by temperament. He gets genuinely excited about new products in a way I find endearing even when the products don't earn it. We've had a robot vacuum that got stuck under the couch more often than it cleaned, a smart refrigerator that sent us notifications about our milk, a milk that never accurate, and a brief period with a sleep tracking device that Marcus used for 3 weeks before concluding he slept better, not knowing how badly he slept. The smart home system was a more serious investment than any of those, installed over the course of several weekends in our flat in Cape Town, a rented place in the southern suburbs that we'd been in for 2 years. I'm a physiotherapist, I run my own small practice, and my interest in home technology begins and ends with whether the Wi-Fi is reliable enough to run my scheduling software. I am telling you this because the fact that I'm the one telling this story matters. Marcus would have explained this with more technical detail and possibly a different conclusion. I can only tell you what I experienced and what I made of it, which is a physiotherapist's perspective, which is to say practical, anatomical, interested in evidence, and genuinely not inclined toward dramatic interpretation. The system Marcus installed was built around a voice assistant, speakers in the main rooms, connected lights and a smart lock on the front door, a video doorbell, and a tablet mounted in the kitchen that served as a central control panel. The voice assistant was always listening for its wake word, which was a brand name I won't include here. Once activated, you could ask it to do things, control the lights and music and thermostat, set timers, ask questions. Standard functionality. We'd had it running for about 4 months before anything unusual happened. I worked late on a Wednesday in June, a patient with a complex post-surgical recovery who needed an extended session. Marcus was at his office. He does financial consulting and keeps long hours when a project is closing. Our daughter Annika was 16 and perfectly capable of being home alone, had been for years, and was presumably doing homework or watching something on her laptop when I left that morning. I got home at 7:30 to find Annika sitting on the couch with her legs drawn up and the television off, which was unusual in itself because Annika in a quiet room generally means Annika asleep or Annika upset. She wasn't asleep. I asked what was wrong, and she said, in the tone teenagers use when they're trying to present something calmly but haven't quite managed it, The house said something weird. I sat down. I asked her to tell me. She said she'd been in her bedroom around 5 o'clock, headphones on, working on an assignment, when she became aware that the voice assistant in the hallway outside her room had activated. She knew this because the device has a light that comes on when it's active, and the light was visible through the gap under her door. She hadn't said the wake word. She'd had headphones on playing music and hadn't spoken at all. She opened her bedroom door and the device was active, its light on, and it said very clearly and without any prompt from her, "She's home." Then it deactivated. Anika stood in the hallway and called out, thinking I'd come home early. No response. She checked the flat. Empty. She checked the video doorbell footage on the kitchen tablet to see if anyone had come to the door. Nothing. She'd been sitting on the couch since 5:30, about 2 hours, waiting for one of us to come home. My first response was the one you'd expect. I told her there was probably a technical explanation, that these devices sometimes activate on sounds that approximate the wake word, that a television in a neighboring flat or a conversation in the stairwell could do it, that whatever it said was almost certainly a misfire of some automated routine Marcus had set up that she hadn't known about. She said, "It said she's home. Not I'm ready, or here's your reminder, she's home." I said I'd ask Marcus about his automations when he got in. Marcus got home at 9, and I described it while Anika sat at the kitchen table. He listened carefully, which is one of the things I appreciate about him, and then went to the tablet and pulled up the device log. The log showed an activation event at 17:03. No wake word detected. The output it had generated and played was logged as a string of text. Marcus read it off the screen and then read it again quietly to himself. He said, "That's not an automation I set up." The logged output text was, "She's home now, you can go." Anika had heard the first part through the door. She hadn't heard the second part because she'd already been moving toward the hallway. Marcus went through every automation in the system that night, every routine, every scheduled action. There was nothing that matched that output. The device had generated it spontaneously, or something had caused it to generate it, and the log showed no connected event, no incoming signal, no recognized wake phrase. He contacted the manufacturer's support the next day. They reviewed the log remotely and told him the activation was unexplained, that the output text didn't match any routine or response template in their system, and that they'd escalated it to their technical team. We received a follow-up email 8 days later, saying the event had been reviewed and classified as an anomalous output, likely caused by a software error, and that a firmware update had been pushed to our device to prevent recurrence. The firmware update was time-stamped 3 days before the event had occurred. Marcus called them back about that. The support representative he reached said she couldn't explain the timestamp discrepancy and would flag it for follow-up. Nobody followed up. The device is still in the hallway. Marcus didn't want to remove it. I've stopped walking past it without looking at it, which I know is irrational and do anyway. Anika keeps her bedroom door closed now, not latched, just closed. I've noticed it every day since June, and I haven't said anything because I'm not sure what I would say. I set the whole system up myself, which is relevant because I can't blame someone else for how deep it went. I'm a software developer, been one for about 14 years, and I have the particular kind of relationship with technology where I trust it more than most people do, and also understand its failure modes better than most people do, which creates a specific variety of overconfidence. I know what can go wrong. I've just spent enough time fixing other people's problems that I tend to assume I won't make the same mistakes. My wife Jess and I bought our house in the suburbs of Toronto in 2019, a semi-detached in the East End that needed work but had good bones, which is what everyone says about houses that need work. Over the first year, we renovated the kitchen and finished the basement, and I, quietly and incrementally, turned the house into something that would embarrass a reasonable person with its level of automation. I want to describe the system accurately because the details matter. At full build-out, I had smart bulbs in every room, a learning thermostat, video doorbells front and back, 4 interior motion sensors, smart locks on both exterior doors, a connected smoke and CO detector system, a network-attached storage device running home automation software, and a voice assistant hub in the kitchen and one in the bedroom. Everything ran through a single local server in the basement that I'd built myself, rather than relying on cloud processing, which I thought made it more secure and more reliable. The whole system talked to itself through a home automation platform that let me write custom routines and automations in a scripting language I knew well. It worked beautifully for about 2 years. She'd say things like, "Can you ask the house to turn on the kitchen lights?" with a tone that was approximately 30% genuine appreciation and 70% gentle mockery, which was fair. The system did make some things genuinely easier. The thermostat alone probably paid for itself. The automations I wrote meant that when we came home after dark, the path lights came on before we reached the door, that the bedroom shifted to a warmer light temperature in the hour before we usually went to sleep, that if a window was left open when the temperature dropped below a threshold, I'd get a notification. The first thing I noticed that was wrong was in March of 2021. Jess was visiting her sister in Ottawa for a long weekend, Thursday to Sunday, and I was home alone, which I'm comfortable with. I used the time to work on a few automation scripts I'd been meaning to refine and did some overdue maintenance on the server. Ordinary weekend. On Friday night around 11, I was in the basement at my workstation, and the kitchen lights directly above me on the ground floor turned on. I had motion sensors in the kitchen. The automation was simple. Lights on when motion detected, off after 8 minutes of no motion. The sensor had triggered. I went upstairs. The kitchen was empty. I checked the app on my phone, which showed the sensor log, and it had logged a motion event at 11:08 p.m. Clear as anything in the database, time-stamped, categorized correctly. My first assumption was a calibration issue. Motion sensors throw false positives, particularly the cheaper PIR sensors that respond to heat differentials. A furnace cycling on, a draft from a poorly sealed window, even direct sunlight on certain sensor models can trigger them. I noted it and went back downstairs. Saturday night, same time, same sensor, same result. I was in the living room this time, reading, and the kitchen lights came on. I was closer, and I watched from the doorway for the full 8 minutes until the lights went off automatically. Nothing in the kitchen. Sensor log showed a motion event. 2 nights in a row at approximately the same time was a pattern, and patterns have causes. I pulled the raw sensor data and looked at the event history for the previous 3 months. The sensor had triggered at that time between 10:55 and 11:15 p.m. on 11 other nights over that period, all of them nights when Jess and I were both asleep or in the bedroom with the door closed. It had never triggered during the day or in the early evening. 11 times, and I hadn't noticed because I'd been asleep. The rational explanation was still equipment malfunction. Sensors develop faults, firmware has bugs, a loose connection can cause intermittent false readings. I ordered a replacement sensor and remounted it with better calibration and considered the matter addressed. Jess came home Sunday evening and I mentioned it to her casually over dinner as a funny quirk of the system. She listened and then said, "That happened once when you were traveling too." I thought I'd left a light on. She hadn't mentioned it at the time. She said she hadn't thought it was worth bringing up. The replacement sensor triggered on its 3rd night installed. 11:04 p.m. Kitchen lights on. I was already awake because I'd started, without quite admitting it to myself, staying up past 11. I went to the kitchen and this time I stayed there and looked carefully at everything. The sensor was mounted correctly. The room was empty and still. The temperature differential between the kitchen and the rest of the house was within normal range. No draft, no open window. I stood there for a few minutes and then I opened the back door and checked the motion log for the exterior camera. The exterior camera had logged a motion event in the backyard at 11:01 p.m., 3 minutes before the kitchen sensor triggered. The camera footage from 11:01 p.m. was 6 seconds of dark backyard, unclear, the way night footage is, And at the right edge of the frame, near the fence, something that might have been a shape and might have been compression artifacts in the low light image. I enlarged it, I processed it through a filter I had on my workstation that reduced noise in low light video. The shape had a consistent outline across 3 frames. It was standing near the fence facing the house. It was there at 11:01 and gone 11:02. I sat with that for a long time before I decided what it meant. Someone had been in my backyard, standing at my fence, watching my house regularly for months. And my system, the system I'd built to make my home safer, had logged every visit without ever alerting me.